time, as always, to take a look at the stories making the papers this morning. Here to try and make sense of things, try being the operative word, the anthropologist Mariana Hotta and the broadcaster Edward Adu. Lovely to see you both. Really hope you're well. Edward, let's start with you. I mean, and I have to say, I mean, the headline in the Observer story that you've picked out first here kind of tells it all. Not the main story with the Prime Minister visiting Kiev, but instead, Rishi Sunak, he's not going to be Prime Minister, according to his colleagues.
No, it's not going to be. And remember, he was touted as the next PM. Everybody, I mean, he came to catchy slogans about him after he with Eat Out to Help Out and all the other things which he did. And clearly he's not the sort of preferred choice, or he's not a likeable character amongst ranks in the Conservative Party. And this is connected to his wife and the non-dom status, and his wife, who's a daughter of actually to Morty, who is a daughter of an Indian billionaire, and at the time revealed that she had non-dom status. And this is what's caused hoo-ha amongst not just ranks, but people who have said, no, in actual fact, this should have been declared. But it's about the chance of Rishi Sunak having a green card. Now, he had this whilst he was an MP, and then when he travelled to the States, I believe it was last year, and then he had discussions about it, and he made a decision. He said, look, I think he spoke to authorities and made the decision to give it up. Now, the Labour, Lib Dems, everybody has been just angered or concerned about this, and there's been calls for him to resign. Now, he, as I mentioned earlier on, he was touted as the man to take over Boris Johnson at one stage. I mean, not just critics, but everybody, his character, what he did in terms of everybody thought he had a better stronghold rather than Boris. I mean, we've seen pictures of him. It was not his car filling up at a petrol station.
Yeah, well, he couldn't even work out how to pay for the thing, could he?
He couldn't even work out how to pay for it. But I think the reason why he became a likable character is because of his calmness and his kind of different approach to the Prime Minister. But these revelations and what's happened has certainly set it back. And I mean, if he's not going to get support from backbenchers and from the rest of the Conservative Party, then and for him to resign, then it's troubling times for him. But but his friends and people who are supporting him have said, look, this is a smear campaign. This is being used to try and to get rid of him. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I mean, it's a smear campaign, Mariana. I mean, take us to the front of the Mail on Sunday. I mean, we were talking about this during the papers yesterday. My view is, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, at a point when he was negotiating with the Americans on trade, on tariffs and so on, was making financial declarations to the US government about about his income, was paying tax to the American government. I mean, that aspect of this, I think, is going to come back and bite him in the backside, frankly.
I know, yeah, it's a bit of a pile-in at this point, isn't it? The green card question, the kind of turnaround from Akshata Murthy, so Rishi Sunak's wife, saying, actually, this is about a British sense of fairness rather than what's legal. So everything she did was legal, but whether people feel like it's fair, she doesn't want to be a distraction to her husband's work, or for the impact on her family.
Sorry, Mary, can he get away with that? Mary, can he get away with that, given the fact that the Chancellor adopted 3 positions this week? The first was, we've done nothing wrong. The second is, people are being racist and sexist. The third is, actually, do you know what? Sense of fair play will pay it.
Yeah, exactly. I think I would imagine that they're surprised by the amount and fury of the kind of the public criticism. Obviously, there's been the accusation that this is a Labour smear campaign, and then other people in the sources close to the Labour Party, one of those, has said actually he should look closer to home and maybe as number 10 briefing against their own Chancellor. It's kind of depressing, though, that what could have been quite a grown-up conversation about what is it that we want our tax law to do? how should it operate so that people who are incredibly wealthy, who have accountants, who know what the kind of the loopholes or the rules are so that they can pay 30 grand rather than 20 million pounds or whatever the actual real figures are. These are laws that should work for us as a society, as members of the public, not just be ones that kind of best suit, the very wealthy and their mates, and the rest of us don't really register it. What we're worried about is the pay packet at the end of the month and the national insurance hikes. The thing that really, really, really baffles me is how they thought they were going to get away with this. Did they just think it was going to be secret always, and that when it kind of came into the public domain, they kind of went, well, that's not your business?
Apparently so. I mean, the Prime Minister did not know about, according to the Prime Minister, about his green card status. Edward, to the front of the Sunday Times, it's now also, Sajid Javid has been dragged into all of this. I mean, we are now starting to wonder whether or not perhaps we should get a declaration from, senior politicians as to whether or not they've ever held this status.
I think there's going to be a list coming out sometime of possibly other MPs who are in the same predicament. Now, Sajid Javid said that he was a non-dom for 6 years, but he's now paying his full share. And he was a banker. He was earning up to £3 million a year. Now, he's admitted that this happened between 2000 and 2006. Before he began his political career. But you've got to think, I mean, a lot of critics talking about the actual issue regarding non-dom and kind of connected it and saying that it's related to the current government, the Tories. But this is laws which were sort of in place when Labour were in government as well. And I think the reason why we're talking about it, because of the issues related to the economy, people who are struggling, and things are getting tougher for us. And I think it's come at a time where people are thinking, well, look, there's legislation being placed and we're being penalised, but these are politicians who, in effect, are had or using these or being part of these, such as the non-dom, and in a sense, that should have been declared. So I think there will be a list, and who knows, we may be a cross-party list of individuals who we thought, seriously, is that what happened? And whether it's it's down to public interest and whether people actually want to know more about this.
Sure. Well, Marianne, take us to the front of the Observer, and look, I will say that the timing might be entirely coincidental, but it is surely somewhat fortuitous for the Prime Minister that whilst his closest political rival is fighting for his political life, he is admittedly being welcomed incredibly warmly by Volodymyr Zelensky.
Yeah, I think your sense of there being a bit of perhaps choreography or coordination.
Don't know what you're talking about, Marianne. Come on.
I suspect you might be absolutely on the money here, which is just depressing, isn't it? We kind of need better public servants than this, but it is what it is. Rishi's fighting for his political career, and Boris is swanning around saying that Vladimir Zelensky has the courage of a lion and the roar of a lion. The secret visit to Kiev, and what he's doing not only is pledging £100 million more of aid, arms aid to Ukraine, so in the form of anti-ship missiles, armoured vehicles. It's also, a pretty good, photo shoot, isn't it? Not to be cynical, obviously, the UK support for Ukraine is important.
When the Prime Minister was walking the streets of Kiev, ordinary citizens, ordinary residents of Kiev were coming up and praising him to the rafters for the assistance that he is providing. In fact, we're just having a quick look at it just now. But just on that, I mean, if you are Boris Johnson right now, he's a politician. You would be daft not to take advantage of moments like this. And, of course, reinforce the notion that our foreign policy is actually doing something good.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it is important. I think it's important for the UK to step up and be that ally to nations around the world who, need our support and benefit from our somewhat diminished but still present place on the international stage. This comes also in the light of the NATO announcement that they're going to plan, it's kind of like in the early stages, but to have a permanent force on the borders of NATO so as to, well, I guess effectively prevent Putin, well, at least make Putin think twice before doing anything like this again. That in itself doesn't change what happens in Ukraine on the ground and what happens with those eastern regions. But I think the fact that Boris Johnson can walk the streets of Kiev along with Zelensky, they're not wearing body armour.
It definitely says something. Marianne, Edward, we're going to have to pause. We have to pause there because we're just about to run out of time. We'll talk about the Grand National and how much I didn't win next up. For now, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
You guys can stay right where you are. Of course, after the break, we will bring you the very latest from Ukraine as President Zelensky thanks the UK for its support.